Welcome back. I'm Mike Spence, and I'm here with guest Dick Glock, our Superintendent of Schools, and we're talking more about the impact of our school system and how that may be impacted by a reconfiguration or consolidation of the schools in the near future. Dick, we were just talking about the student populations, and we were talking about, how those students may be impacted. But why don't you speak a little bit to how many teachers may be impacted if schools, as the board faces these decisions, what do those decisions entail?
Well, right now, Michael, and I'm glad you kind of restated it in terms of reconfiguration, because at this time I'm not ready to declare that there's going to be some consolidation. I think if what we heard from parents was, and really the communities, was they wanted to leave the elementary schools alone. And it gets down to the neighborhood school concept and the geography. One of the plans, we would have had children being bused from Pioneer to Ione, because that's where the junior high has the greatest capacity. And so that was looked at pretty dimly, and so we said, okay, let's slow this down and see what people really would want to do. But like we started with, I think it's a study, and we're not going to necessarily consolidate. I mean, we've kept it away from the site for 5 years, and on the one hand, I'm kind of proud of that.
You haven't made any changes since you've been superintendent here.
Well, what we have done is probably reduce some staff along the way. We do have a few empty classrooms that are available now for other purposes, meetings and whatever, that were not available when I first came. So we do, and at Ione Junior High, the most notable excess is we've got 7 classrooms that have never been used. And the principal's done that intentionally, in that he thinks, at some point we're going to grow, and let's not just use everything because it's there.
Well, we've had a great system for the last I
think so. I think it's fair to say our API, I mean, our teachers and employees have done a remarkable job, because everyone is expected to do more with less. And now you'll hear talk about the Common Core standards, and our district is well ahead thanks to the teachers and Elizabeth Chapin-Pinotti, the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. We had a teacher stand up, actually the president of the Teachers Association, and say the teachers in our district are pretty comfortable with the Common Core standards. Well, in most districts, that would not be said. I don't know of any district necessarily where people would say, hey, we know what the task is, we know it's going to be work, we're already partway there, and we can deal with this.
I think people are afraid, at least what I hear is that, where is the first, how do you get the best out of your budget for each kid now, this next year, not 5-10 years from now, but this next year, because we all have kids in the system. And where's the first place that you cut, aside from closing schools and shifting kids around to different facilities? But the first place that seems to be always cut are your AP classes and those standards, those higher end classes. Do you give up some of those AP classes, or do you cut at the bottom? I know there was an agricultural vocational class. Where do the teachers get cut? Where do those programs get cut? And how that impacts
done by
everybody.
Demand. Yeah, that's done by demand, really. And Argonaut kind of delayed theirs because they were trying to get a pretty finite number, but and they still have more students in their computer bank, and not really. We have, if you go 30 to 1, which is what our class size can be, they have enough staff to do that. But and Amador High School has 50 more, not 30 more. They have 50 more. So everybody deals with that, and we actually lose more students than you would think out of Argonaut from 10th to 11th grade, and they go to Independence, so we don't lose them out of the system.
Your budget for next year, I was reading, there was a question, an issue about the number of students that you allocate for each school and each high school, and that number is always a little bit lower because you do have that attrition,
right.
And they were making an issue out of the fact that you were only projecting a certain amount of students in the budget. Maybe there were 10 or 20 less students. Speak to that. Is that an issue at all? Or is
Well, no, what we do is, it's an issue that you have to address, but what we do is add sections. It's illegal to hire. One person said, well, just hire more staff and then lay them off if you don't need them. Well, you can't do that. That's illegal. You have to do it by March 15th. So you get hung up in the business of, okay, you've got to guess as close as you can, and we have, it's not really a guess, it's a very educated prediction, and the business office almost always is right on it. They were right on it at all the sites last year, and they'll be right on it this year. But what you do is you add sections, and that gets a little clumsy because you end up buying extra periods from teachers, and then that's a drain because it burns them out. So you can do that one semester with somebody, but you really don't want to do it 2 semesters. The other thing is you end up hiring half-time people, which, well, okay, you got to know where you need the sections. So right now, just keeping everybody doesn't help you because you don't know where you're going to have those holes in the fall.
Right.
So the way you deal with it is to add some sections, or in the elementary, we'd add a teacher, that kind of thing. We've done that before.
At first glance, it always sounds confusing. You're looking at all this. You have to really put a lot of trust in the school system and the way it's being managed and how policies are being implemented. All you have to do is look at the school calendar, and you could start right there and questioning, why is it this way or that way? And then when you sit in on these meetings, which I've had an opportunity to do, you just all of a sudden, the light bulb comes on. You go, oh my God, there are union considerations, and there's this consideration and that consideration that goes into every one of these decisions. So it is remarkable on how that works. The board is faced with a lot of pressure coming up because you have individuals, they're all people throughout our community who sit on the board, very respectable individuals, by the way. And they all have their own personal feeling in terms of maybe one board member may feel that AP classes are ultimately important. The other board member may feel, hey, that's the first place we cut. Let's take out the AP classes. You have individuals on that board who are making these decisions. So you wonder how much weight are they going to place in this committee, in terms of that committee that's being put together to help make this decision. Why don't you talk a little bit, Dick, about the role of the committee and how the board might best view that role in their decisions that they make?
Well, I think it means quite a bit, and I don't think we would do it. It's going to take us at the cabinet level a lot of time to do this. It's always easier just to work with 5 people than we're going to have 35 people.
Right.
There's 33 on the committee and a few alternates, so it'll be close to 40 people. And I don't know exactly who will attend every time, but as there is with my parent advisory group, there's a core group that are always there. And it'll be the case here. You'd have to ask a board member that, but I do think it carries some weight. Like I say, or they would have said, no, let's not do that. You just do the best you can, come up with a recommendation, and we'll study it. But I think the business of the community in the past, feeling it was done to them, I wasn't here, so I really can't relate to it. We gave scholarships to 5th and I think 7th generation family children. It's like, come on, I can't deal with that. My family's owned a farm for, I think, 4 generations. It'll soon be 5. But nonetheless, none of us have lived on that farm the whole time. In this community, people actually live and work there for 7 generations. And so I think it's really important. In my role, I'm going to try to suggest something that I think the community wants. And it gets back to what you said about, well, how do you know what that is? And it gets down to what's the educational program and what can we do with our finances available, to offer the best thing available. Because right now at both high schools, we do some things every other year. Well, that's cutting corners. That's not fair to the kids that are juniors or seniors at the time. And you're exactly right about some people would say, let's have fewer AP classes. I mean, we had a parent at the very last parent meeting, site meeting, that said, look, I graduated from this high school. I want exactly the same education for my child. I don't want anything better. It doesn't have to be better at all. I want the same thing that I had back in whatever year it was. Okay, now that's one line of thinking. And so is that line of thinking prevail, or is it more, okay, what are kids going to be needing in 5 years or 10 years when they graduate, probably? I mean, there's going to be some kind of training. There'll be some kids that go into jobs here in the community. That probably won't be the highest percentage, but I mean, you've got to meet those kids' needs at a real practical level, and then also prepare kids for Stanford and Berkeley.
We have to keep our kids prepared. I mean, that is an emphasis. I can see that. I can see that being an issue. You know, there was a meeting scheduled, and I read that it was rescheduled. It's the same meeting date.
Yeah, right.
That the committee was going to meet on at the end of May.
Right.
And that was going to be put off, but now it's back on the same date,
Yes.
back on the same burner. So they are going to have that meeting. There was data that they were looking for in terms of
Right.
making a decision, but in terms of the agenda for the board and that meeting for the committee, what are those two subjects that they'll be evaluating?
What that is going to be is just the decline in enrollment and what that means. Some of the members of the committee wanted more information on the facilities. We're supposed to have a draft of that this week. We're supposed to have the final draft in the first week in June.
So this first meeting is just about declining enrollment.
Baseline.
Not a major issue.
Right.
We only have a few seconds left, but I have to just give you my best and just wish you good luck with all of the issues. And we're going to have you back on and talk more about the issues as they unfold, because they're going to be unfolding rather quickly and developing with the committee's input, and hopefully the board will have an open ear to their suggestions, and help that decision be the best possible decision for Amador County as a whole.
Right.
And I know that you're going to do well to neutralize that and be there right there as it goes on. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you very much for coming on the news here this week.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.